Hey y'all, how you doing? What's the date today? December 13th, 2019. Hey, we're almost going into the new year here. I wanted to talk a little bit because recently I've been talking to clients about colonics and the colon. And a lot of people really don't have a lot of information about the colon and how our colon works. And really, I think it's the most uninformed and misinformed elimination organ that we have in our body. I think there's more things said by TV personalities like Dr. Oz and others that people just take to heart. Like if I did this colonic, I am going to lose all my good flora. And if I do enemas, I'm going to become addicted to them and I'll never be able to poop on my own again. So I want to just start with telling you guys a little bit about me. I've been doing colon hydrotherapy and I am accredited by IACT, which is the International Association of Colon Therapists. And there's the beginner level, the intermediate level, and the advanced level, and then you get up to national board certification. And so I've been doing this a very long time, been nationally board certified. I've been probably giving people colon hydrotherapy sessions for 6 days a week since 2003. So I would say I've given a fair amount of colonics and looked at a lot of poop. And before you squirm in your seats, remember this: the old time doctors, 125 years ago, or doctors when they came to people's homes, really the first question that they asked was they wanted to see a stool sample. I mean, stool samples were looked at as one of the ways we can tell about somebody's health. There's information given by a stool sample. If you bring your cat or your dog to the vet, the first thing they want to do is take a stool sample. This is very common, right? We do it with animals, but I think with people, and because of the way our medical system now is, where we are more, medicine and prescription drug centered than ever before, I think what's happened is it's gone by the wayside. So I want to talk a couple things. I want to talk about when people are taking laxatives. And I had someone tell me the other day that laxatives were safer than colonics. And so the misinformation about doing enemas and colonics is just so widespread. And even today, functional medicine doctors that we consider more of the health-minded doctors that are all over the internet, and people who are, they're doing more lab testing. They're talking more about paleo-centered diets, low carbohydrate, even carnivore. We're hearing all these things. We're understanding fat is good. There's so many big steps, but in my opinion, after 25 years of being around and associated with colon hydrotherapy, I think it's gone by the wayside, and it's really unfortunate. So I just wanted to first tell a little bit about my story. I've been an athlete probably most of my life. I'm now in my 60s, so it's not as an important of a thing as it was. I like to stay in shape still, but still I'm not training. But when I was younger, I traveled in Canada. I played national racquetball. And back in the 80s, we still thought racquetball was going to go somewhere, right? Never did. Because really, it couldn't go on TV. It was really hard to be filmed. The ball moved too fast and other problems. But anyway, in those years, I didn't realize that having one bowel movement a day wasn't enough. I didn't realize that going every other day or every third day wasn't enough. And then, add to that, taking a lot of antibiotics, which happened in my life, and this dysbiosis, this imbalance of good and bad bacteria. So here's how it works. You have 23 feet of small intestine. That's where you eat and your food is digested and churned up and moved through. It goes through something called the Ileocecal Valve, which is a valve that opens and closes and leads into that bowel. When you do enemas or colonics, you are not bringing water into that small intestine where the digestion takes place at all. You're only bringing water into the bowel. So I always like to tell people that, because I think people get so many confusing thoughts, about, and I've heard it all really, especially the one about losing your good bacteria. Let me just tell you something. The probiotics that are in your small intestine and those that are in the large are two different things. The small intestine harbors different probiotic type bacteria than the bowel does. The bowel's predominant bacteria is something called bifidus. And for most people, they don't understand that just like there's a biofilm in the small intestine, we've talked about that a lot, about when people have H. pylori and different bugs that get in that biofilm and they hide in there. So when you take things, it's really hard to get to bugs. Well, it's so similar in the colon. So we have 4.5 to 5 feet of colon, depending on the person. And the colon really can harbor things in the walls. And if you've ever tried to wash a pan that you just had maybe a casserole in that was very sticky, or pasta stuck on the sides of it, you can imagine how the walls of the colon can become. Now, the walls of the colon should be muscular. I'll give you an example. If you work out at the gym and you go one day to work out your legs, today's a leg day, and you're just going to focus on that, your colon wall is a series of muscles. And when your colon wants to expel a stool, these muscles work like this, and that's called peristalsis. Peristalsis means that the colon is moving things forward through all 5 feet, so that within 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours, you're going to have usually right after you eat, you should have a bowel movement. But the meal you just ate prior to that usually will be moving through before the meal that you're eating now, if you can catch my drift. But most people are having 16, 18, 24, 48 hours after they eat, and these movements are not moving forward. So peristalsis really matters, and it's a musculature. So what can stop the musculature moving? Well, one I'll tell all of you is medicine. If you are on prescription drugs, if you are on anything, antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, if you have been on maybe pain meds for your back, etc., if they're going to sedate your pain, they're going to sedate your colon, and your colon is muscular. Understand that. That's the first thing I see with people, and people who are drug dependent should be doing enemas or colonics to keep that colon moving. Okay, so peristalsis is highly important, so drugs can stop it. What else can? Well, I'm old enough to know that flour and water makes glue, because when we were in first grade, we made glue that way, right? We mix flour and water together to even make wallpaper glue. You see it with little children, they stick things on paper using flour and water. So what else can line that colon wall and give you not a healthy moving colon? Lots of pasta, lots of bread, lots of cereal, breakfast cereal, and all kinds of cereals. I recommend fiber, but I never recommend grain-based fiber, because it turns into pasta, sticky, skinny colon. So, and you might be the 1 in 3 people, or they're even thinking it's more now, are sensitive to wheat and other grains. There's so many problems with grains. One of them is the colon, and I can talk about that in other successive videos. But so what can happen to that colon wall? It's impacted with sticky matter. Okay. Then let's just imagine you were born with some structural problem. You look at the standard colon on the internet of how it's supposed to look. I have another book written by a man who did autopsies, and in 5,000 autopsies he did in his lifetime, he never once saw a properly shaped colon. So you can kind of imagine what can happen to us. We can be born with an odd shaped colon. We can also create one by eating, like I said, lots of sticky stuff, lots of processed food. Maybe your job is driving an 18-wheeler and you're sitting all day long, or whatever it is. And so there's this structural issue. Maybe you can't exercise. And, paraplegics and people who have injuries to their body, they have problems with their colon, because the colon needs to be exercised. It needs to move. What's another one? Chronic dehydration. So what does the word constipation mean? The word means packed together. Constipation, packed together. And the amount of people that have told me over 20 years, or at least 18 years, I drink a lot of water, that does not mean your colon is hydrated. You can drink a lot of water and pass that straight through your body. Plus, don't forget, for clean water to get inside your cells, you need to have electrolytes, and you need to have minerals. You need to be taking magnesium and other minerals in there, so that's going to be able to actually get inside your cells. So your food, really, not so much water you're drinking, but your food you're eating determines the health of your colon and how hydrated you are. Also know anatomically that your colon, if you look at it online, and I was going to actually show a chart here and I don't have it, but your major arteries and many blood vessels attached to that colon wall. So if the colon is dirty, you are directly affecting your blood, and your blood is like soil to a plant. You have to understand that a dirty colon is dirty blood. Your blood is anywhere between 62 to 67% water. I've I've heard different numbers. So you have to understand that the cleanliness of that colon and its ability to move, as I said, it's a muscle, right? Its ability to move and keep things moving really impacts your life. I will also say that my acupuncture friends tell me all the time that the meridians go right through that colon. So your emotions, your feelings, right? Everything is attached to this colon. And I just can't tell you enough how important it is to go at least twice a day. And they should not be hard little stones and rocks that look like rabbit pellets, right? Or goat pellets. They really need to look like, 4 to 6 inch long, semi-soft sausage stools, medium brown in color. They shouldn't be, going back and forth from watery stool, bright orange or yellow in color, and then going back over here to these hard pieces or black pieces. Or what if they're chalk gray in color, chalk gray with a light sort of gray green? Okay, we're looking at bile problems there. You're looking at problems with the liver, right? We used to call it staturia. It's an inability to assimilate or digest fats. So our poop tells us a lot of things, right? So I want to go back for a minute to looking at the colon itself and peristalsis and with this churning motion that we're supposed to have. If you ever have had children and you potty train them, you're always hoping when the child is sitting on the potty that they're going to have a bowel movement and you're going to be able to say, well, look at something's coming. And the child will usually say, oh, it hurts. Well, it hurts before it comes because you have cramping, because something is being moved forward. So there is a lot of misinformation out there about colonics. And I just want to be maybe you just heard this the first time. A colonic machine does not suck anything out of you. We don't suck it. We don't vacuum it. Nothing happens like that. Okay. So first of all, when you're on a table and you're in a gown and you're covered, we insert what's called a speculum. And the speculum is going to go into the rectal opening very gently. It's going to be gelled. And that speculum has been FDA approved. Everything is new. When you do a colonoscopy, they are cleaning the speculum or piece they put in you between patients. And a lot of them are still using autoclaves, which allow bacteria and other parasites to actually survive. So I'd be very careful going for a colonoscopy to ask the doctor, are you using a disposable speculum each time or disposable camera setup every time that you're working with someone? But in colonics, we use a disposable package. It's new for every person. Nothing is ever reused. We have an FDA-approved machine. That machine has cleaning water that goes through after every person that is hospital grade. Something that is highly cleaning. It goes out to the sewer. The way the machine is made, no stool or no matter can ever come back to a person. It only goes one way. So again, FDA approved, wonderful machine. But I want to just say it doesn't suck anything. So I can't tell you over the years how many people, especially men, have come in and said, okay, here I am, suck it all out of me. Now I just explained to you guys that the colon is muscular. And the muscles move things forward, and the things that can stop those muscles moving are many. I haven't even mentioned all of those, right? So we can even get to a place when we get older in life where doctors say, well, we're going to cut part of your colon out because you don't have any peristalsis. Your colon isn't working, so let's just cut it out. We never want to do that. And colonics and utilizing ways to stimulate the bowel to work again are highly valuable. So because our machine does not pull or suck anything out, what are we doing, right? So a colonic session is about 45 minutes. You're laying on the table. What's happening is as the water comes in, and the colon therapist, in my case, me, for my business, I'm sitting beside you. The water comes in, and I'm governing the speed and the pressure of the water. And just so you know, a barium enema at a doctor's office would be 21 psi. And that's your pressure. And what we're doing with colonics is about 1 to 1.5 psi. So it's really not a lot of pressure. We can't puncture your colon because we've just inserted a speculum at the base in the rectum. And the machine only brings the water in very, very slowly. We're watching the pressure the entire time. Now, if you do a colonoscopy and they're putting a wire all the way around your colon, that could puncture your colon. That's why you sign your life away before you go in and do that. So colonics cannot do that. We just inserted it into the rectum. And now we're going to start bringing water in very slowly as you lay on that table to do what? Not to suck it all out of you, but to cause your colon, just like, okay, remember I said earlier, you go to the gym and you have leg day, so you stimulate the muscles only in your legs that day. What are we doing with colonics? We're stimulating the musculature of the walls of the colon to start to move. We tell people in the beginning of your colonic, the session, you may not feel much, but usually halfway through, you're going to start feeling some stirring up in the bowel. You're going to start feeling your stomach moving and maybe a sense of cramping, maybe a sense of movement. So for a colonic session, a lot of that's going to go through the tubing, right through the machine and out into the sewer. But for a lot of people at the end of the session, you're going to go to the bathroom. You're going to put your little feet up on the little step stool, and you're going to have a lot of releases, and you're going to feel that colon starting to kick in again. For many, many people after a colonic session, they will have bowel movements for the next few days. They're having, spontaneous bowel movements. For so many of my clients, they're so excited about this because they may go 4 days, 5 days, a week, without having a bowel movement. So yes, as a nutritionist, I'll tell you food and diet matters, but let me just tell you the value of the colon. Not only do you have peristaltic muscles that need to move, you have cells that line that colon. And those cells need to be fed oxygen and hydration and water. And you have to understand that this is an eliminative organ. And for most people, it's encrusted. John Wayne, the actor, after he died, he first had, I think he had some sort of stomach cancer. And then after they treated him with all that chemo, they went in there and his colon was full of almost, we've heard anywhere between 20 to 40 pounds of hardened fecal matter at his autopsy. And when they took his colon out, they had to use a saw to cut through that. Hardened. When you see those big bellies, hard, like a basketball, and you can't push it. Yes, there's gas in there. It could be some gas, but there's hardened fecal matter. 5 feet of colon. The colon is very expandable, right? Because it's got these muscles and it should be moving. But instead what happens is encrusted hard matter expands in there, and we get these big pockets of hardened stool in the colon. In my particular story, as I said earlier, I was probably going about once every 3-4 days. When I first started doing colonics, I felt so amazingly different back in 1996. I remember coming home and painting my bathroom after my first colonic I had because I couldn't believe how good I felt. So the colon is really the seat. It's the seat of everything else. So if I'm working with people on a good diet, we're changing, giving them a protocol, they're changing their lives, they're changing everything. I can't tell you how many people say, I'm doing so great with my diet, I've done everything perfect, but I'm not pooping still. I'm not feeling, energetic. So much of your energy really comes from the colon. And I want to read you this before I end here. I'm going to do another video here on colonics. I'm going to get into it deeper, but I want to read this. Now, Dr. Bernard Jensen was a chiropractor and a PhD nutritionist. And in the 80s and 90s, he and Norman Walker wrote so many books on the colon. I have such a burden that this information is brought forefront again to health-minded people because, quite honestly, it has really fallen by the wayside. But anyway, he lived down here in Escondido, and he wrote a lot of books, and this is one of my favorite books. And it's not a typo, you guys. That title is not a typo. Look at that. Tissue cleansing through bowel management. So that means you can actually clean your body, and actually by managing your bowel, by having a healthy bowel, you can actually cause your body to be cleansed down to a tissue level. It's really not about fasting. Always remember this. When you are fasting to lose weight or get healthy, the toxins in your body are trapped in the cells and in the fat cells and in the body and the fat tissue because your body's telling itself, oh, she's not eating. That means we are probably going into starvation and we want to remain, we want to retain. The body's doesn't want to go catatonic, it wants to hold on, right? So it's not going to be releasing. So you need to be eating the right kind of diet that's going to help your body detoxify, right? Don't not eat. Then we use certain kinds of fibers, the right kind of fiber with the colonics or enemas should you choose to do that. But the whole idea is we want to open the body. This is ancient information. I mean, there is a bird called the ibis that travels all between continents. And after it arrives in Africa, after this long journey over the sea, they have studied this bird. Do you know what it does? It gets there, and it's exhausted. It has this long beak, and it puts the water into the ocean, and it sucks up all that water, and it puts the beak up its rear end, and it cleans itself out. It will do this over and over for a couple days until it's healthy enough again and well enough to go forward. We have studied the bowels for a very long time, but now it's fallen by the wayside. If you should happen to have bowel problems and you're listening to me right now and you have gone to the ER and you have talked about it to your doctor, I would like to ask you sincerely, what was done to help you? What did they know? What did they tell you? Here's a stool softener. Here's a drug. Oh, worst comes worst, we're going to give you some surgery and cut some of that out. They don't know. They really don't know. And I want to say quickly about laxatives. I remember I told you that there's cells that line the wall of your colon. It's cellular, right to your bloodstream, right to everything. When you're using laxatives that have a base of mineral oil and all these different types of things, even senna and even cascara sagrada and things that are used naturally minded, they're actually acting as a poison to that bowel. And the bowel is responding by purging. It's purging because there is a poison. That's not healthy. We need to do the work to make that colon work again, to make that colon healthy again. Do you understand? The right kind of fiber is super valuable to start that rolling. And because most people have small intestine problems ahead of their bowel, so we got SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, or SIFO, small intestine fungal overgrowth, we really want to take a fiber mix that's got, I use liquid antifungals also in it, or antimicrobials, and we take it by mouth. It works through the small intestine, goes through the bowel, and this is a wonderful way to heal the body. We can't even think of resupplying good bacteria to that bowel and everywhere until we actually clean out this encrusted mess of hardened fecal matter and all this stuff lining that bowel wall. I mean, I show people pictures all the time of what I see coming out of people. Long ropes full of mucus, right? They can be black, brown, green, white. You know, mucus can look like anything. But anyway, I want to end this by just reading this real quick from this book by Dr. Bernard Jensen, Tissue Cleansing Through Bowel Management. Wonderful book. Everybody should get it. It's back in print. It's on Amazon, I think $11. It's really worth getting. So this was a doctor who wrote this, and I want to read this to you. And by the way, this was written back in the late 80s. So when this doctor talks about the last 50 years, you got to understand how long he's been doing work with the bowel. He says, in the last 50 years, I've spent helping people to overcome illness, disability, and disease. It has become crystal clear that poor bowel management lies at the root of most people's health problems. In treating over 300,000 patients, it is the bowel that invariably has to be cared for first before any effective healing can take place. In times past, knowledge of the bowel was more widespread and people were taught how to care for the bowel. Somehow, bowel wisdom got lost and it became something that no one wants to talk about anymore. By putting the bowel in the closet and making believe it doesn't exist, many people have gone down the path of improper living, treating the bowel indiscriminately and reaping the sad harvest in later years of their lives. Knowing the ways of keeping the bowel healthy and in good shape is the best way I know to keep away from the grip of disease and sickness. The bowel-wise person is the one who is armed with good knowledge, practices discrimination in their eating habits, and walks the path of the higher life. His or her days are blessed with health, vitality, optimism. That's interesting because it affects your thoughts when your bowel is full of filth. And fulfillment of your life's goals. This person is a blessing and source of inspiration to family and associates. Their cheerful disposition comes from having a vital, toxin-free body made possible by the efficient, regular, and cleansing action of a loved and well-cared-for bowel. Every person who desires the higher things in life must be aware of proper bowel management, what it is, how it works, and what is required. In so doing, you will discover many secrets of life, develop a positive attitude towards yourself, and become the master of body function. This is how integral bowel function is. And once every few days, once every morning when you get out of bed is not enough. So anyway, I just want to put a few banners up here so you guys know how to find me. At the bottom here, this is me, Wendy. I am an FDM, which is a functional diagnostic nutritionist, CNC, a clinical nutritionist in California. NBCCT, National Board Certified Colon Hydrotherapist, and I'm an Adapt Health Coach. My website is www.nethersprings.com. You can always get me there. There's also articles and things that you can read, and there's a podcast there that you can listen to on fungal issues that I did with Superhuman Radio. Might be of benefit to you. This is how to reach me. This is my email, nethersprings2015@gmail.com. This is how to get me on Instagram and Facebook. It's not under Nether Springs. It's simply under Nutrifunction Nether Springs. You'll find me on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm going to continue this later. This is part 1, but I hope you guys have a really great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.